So where I'm most interested when it comes to no-code and automation and AI is using it to fulfill social impact outcomes. So using it specifically for social impact. I do like creative stuff. I didn't actually put it in this presentation, but probably sometime today, if you ask me about other projects, I have like really interesting other projects. And I'm going to walk you through how to create your AI assistant with a tool called Chip. Relatively new, really interesting. And I'll speak about the benefits of using Chip versus like OpenAI a little bit later. By the way, if anyone has any questions, just put your hand up or just shout out your question. So it's a little bit informal. So a little bit about me, Mr. Hackathon. And on my socials, on a lot of my socials, you'll see Mr. Hackathon, because actually before I got really deep into the no-code space, I was actually in the developer space, attending lots of hackathons, participating, winning a lot, losing a lot. And one of the things that really pushed me into the no-code space, I wanted to build and test a lot faster. So if anyone's been to a hackathon, you might have a weekend, you might have a day, you're really pressed for time, you want to build something. And I was always trying to find ways to build and test a lot quicker, which introduced me to a lot of these no-code and low-code tools. I am a former international athlete. I played basketball at a very high level from a very young age. It took me to America. I had a scholarship in America. And actually, I started my career in architectural technology. So I was what's called a virtual design construction manager in architectural technology. But even at that point, I really loved no-code and low-code, but I didn't really know what it was called. I was taking my 3D architectural models, putting it through like an engine and turning it into VR. And this is the stuff I was doing in architecture school, but I wasn't really in the no-code community at that time. I've raised, a couple years ago now, I've raised 150K pre-seed in New York for a HR tech company, actually built with Bubble. I had the best business model, which ultimately is why it failed, but it was a good experience in building with no code, raising with no code being your technology stack, and kind of navigating all of those conversations. I've taught in many universities across the world, fundamentally no code and low code. When it comes to universities, at least over the last couple of years, I do it a little bit less now. I've taught with Glide. Initially, Glide was what I would have said the best introduction. It's a little bit more enterprisey now, so changes things a little bit. And I have a charity for missing Black people, which I'm actually going to speak in the next slide because it connects to the social impact and no code. Before I actually talk about missing Black people, building with AI assistants, and some of these other topics, if anyone actually follows me on Twitter, especially over the last couple of years, or YouTube, you'll see I produce at a very, very high rate. And I actually have some of like my mental models that I use. So if you just look on Twitter, it looks like, oh, I'm building stuff every day, but I have like specific ways and specific buckets. And this is one of my buckets, or one of like my frameworks that I use. Anytime I approach a project, or anytime I have an idea, anytime I see a trend on TikTok that I'm like, hey, a product can be built around that. One of the first things I think about, other than like, what is the problem actually being solved here, is if I'm going to build this, is this going to be to generate income? Because there's some things that are great ideas, but they're not great business models or not great businesses. Is this great for social impacts like missing Black people was? But then you have to think about, how do I actually monetize this and keep it sustainable? Or is this educational and entertainment? So there's some projects I might do for a weekend. It's a fun project, it's a good project, but ultimately I know it's not going to be a good business. Ultimately, I know it's probably not the best thing for social impact. And I might just do it, turn it into a YouTube video, produce it on YouTube, or I just do it to learn Bubble or to learn any Zapier or Make or something like that. But I think you always have to know which bucket does the project fall under, because all of us have lots of different ideas, but you have to remember there's some ideas that you have that are just not going to make you any money. And you have to know that going into it. So, Missing Black People. So Missing Black People is a website, a curated directory built with Softr. So I'm not sure if anyone's speaking on Softr today, but it was built with Softr. What we saw, especially I built in April of 21, and what we saw around the statistics and on Twitter is that there was lots of outrage that the missing black people or the missing people appeals specifically from the black community are not getting a lot of attention in the mainstream media. And I was like, hey, like I can build a website, create some automations to curate this of Twitter and different sources and centralize it to make it easy for people to see. Because I produce at such a high rate and ship lots of stuff, I didn't actually think anyone would really care. But when I posted it on Twitter, it went viral. Lots of media outlets picked it up. Celebrities reached out to support, and I'm still working it on today. Produced huge amount of momentum. Now we work with MOPAC. Now we work with police forces across the country. Now we work with Missing People, which is the government-funded organization to do with missing. And now we're kind of helping assist in changing policy and improving procedures from what was a weekend, or I think it was actually a Thursday, a weekday project that I built with NoCode, shipped, and then just continued developing. Here I have some of the stages that I kind of went through when I really thought about it. So identify community need. I do this a lot, so I don't have it in this presentation, but I will see stuff on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube, where people say, hey, this is a problem I have. And I've seen a TikTok go viral. I'm like, hey, let me look at the comments of this. And if I see lots of people having the same issue, I'm like, hey, there's a problem to be solved here. I don't quite know where it is, but let me just play around in this space. An important thing with that, there's some projects that I have that I probably don't have the best founder market fit. So what I built is great, but it's not aligned with like my background, my interests. Develop a hypothesis. So the hypothesis, one of the hypotheses here was if there was a website for missing black people appeals, that they would get more attention and larger reach. Ideate, so the website wasn't the only kind of idea, and actually in the next slide, I have some frameworks that I've used for ideation that might help significantly. But I did think, hey, could this be great as an app? Like, this is a curated directory. Is there any other way that I can kind of try and resolve this problem? And this is the kind of stage I'm at now, because this is the only way you can run a sustainable, especially with social impact. You have to think about how is it going to be sustainable. So we do the consultancy we do with MOPAC and Missing People and all of the police forces across the country. They're paying us as consultants, and we're thinking about other ways to monetize. At the end, as we get into building an AI assistant, you'll see some of the stuff I'm playing around with when it comes to monetization, and iterate and experiment. So probably if you ask me outside this presentation, I'll tell you about all the things that happened that was challenging with this, especially when it comes to social impact. There's lots of, it was less technological issues, more just like just regular operational issues and organizational issues. That's probably the biggest challenge, not the technology. So we're going to jump to some of the ideation frameworks that I use. I mentioned that I do ship a lot, or at least over the last couple of years, maybe not the last couple of months, ship a lot. But the framework I use is almost always the same. So it's always easy, regardless of industry, for me to find a problem and find a way that NoCode kind of can resolve that problem. So specialization, is there a way to, like, I have Bitly, I have TweetDeck. These are products that really specialized. I have a friend, I don't think she's here today, Lola. She works on ecosystems. So can you build an app for Salesforce? Can you build an app for Zoom? Can you specialize it in a particular software or a particular industry? Productization, so and we see these all over the place now, but is there a service that's usually really like human oriented that we can find a way to systematize that and turn it into a product like Canva? Canva's graphic design services, one of my favorite tools, but very, very simple. I say very simple, it's not very simple, but that in concept is very simple. I have this illustration in the next slide, but there's this concept of unbundling. Let's just jump to that right now. So this is probably not the clearest, but you can see in Reddit, this is Craigslist actually, but you can use Craigslist, you can use Reddit. There are lots of platforms out there that curate lots of different services. You can think of Fiverr, or you can think of anything like that. But all of those services are an individual product or something you can build with no code. So you can see, Lyft here, Etsy. We have curation. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Remote OK, but Remote OK is a job board specifically for remote jobs. What I have, my Missing Black People website, is curated specifically for people that have gone missing within the Black community. You can do this for women. You can do this for the Asian community. You can almost replicate that same model using the framework. And business model innovation, I haven't gone into like the subcategories, but sometimes you might have something that is a SaaS that you can use a different model to actually, it's a very similar product, but the people you attract are slightly different because the business model is different. I have here, the last two are for people more into product studios or venture studios that are building lots of different products. So you have a company like Tesla, and one of Tesla's powers is they're building products within their vertical. So they're trying to own the whole vertical within like electric vehicles, which is very interesting. You could do the same thing. I maybe could do the same thing when it comes to, if I focus on products that are related to social impact within the Black community, I can probably keep building and use that compounding effect to build the audience, build the relationships, build the partnerships. But you also have vertical product comeback. I mix those up, but you have a horizontal product compounded. So you have Google Suite, Azure, that are building products, but they might be in completely different verticals. See, they're leveraging some of their audience, but it's really they're leveraging the whole portfolio to really build something amazing. So getting started with Chip. This is the big question that people have. Chip is, in my opinion, right now, the easiest way to get started with no code to build your AI assistant. What makes this different to building an AI assistant within OpenAI's platform? I'm not sure if anyone's actually used OpenAI's platform to build GPTs. I do like it, but I just think right now it's a very closed ecosystem. For a user to actually use it, you have to have the paid account. I mean, who wants to do that? You can't host it on your own domain yet, maybe in the future. But there's large limitations for me as a creator when it comes to OpenAI, even though I do build in both. But what we have here with Chip, you can host on your own domain. You can, it's available to users without ChatGPT+. You can collect user emails, which is great for marketing, which is great for getting the word out there about your product. There's data and analytics about the usage of your assistant, which for me, I'm a former product manager, so I'm driving product innovation based on the data. And you can integrate with Stripe, so you can monetize based on the usage of your assistant. Okay, so let's go ahead and build an assistant. Before we build an assistant, I will show you an assistant that I have created that's actually accessible publicly through Chip. So here, this is a lesson planner assistant where it allows you to create a lesson planner, obviously. So we'll start with this conversation starter. I say, creating your first project. Yeah. So let's say this is spanned across 4 sessions for high school students. So the questions that it's asking me, and I'm not sure if everybody can see. Oh. The questions that it's asking me are what I've built into the prompt for the assistant to prompt the user. So this is kind of how I like to build assistants, especially these type of assistants. I like to prompt the user for specific information. It could be information about I have a budgeting assistant. It could be information about different expenses, lots of different things. And then it generate whatever is going to generate at the end, which here is a lesson planner. So I've said 4 sessions for high school students. And you can see. So again, this is using my framework that I've given it. If anyone's familiar with prompt engineering, if you're familiar with if you're familiar with AI, a lot of this will be very, very familiar to you. If we go ahead and create one now, so what you can actually see here is a dashboard for an account I have. This is one of my test accounts. The only app I have in this account is an app I am actually trying to work on for missing Black people, to try and help people, the families of missing people, with information. So that's really the bottleneck now. When I've seen working with the police, they have all the information. They don't have the time to give the families all the information all the time. And I say, hey, can AI play a role here? Because that information is out there. It's just connecting the users. So this is what I built here. But what we're going to do is build an assistant. So all you have to do is hit create. And what you can see is the option build, share, sell, monetize settings. And what we have here on the left are the instructions that we're going to give it. We can add our brand, color, obviously the name and description, conversation starters. And the current capabilities of Chip is you can allow users to upload files. You can upload knowledge sources, generate images, allow it to recognize images. You can give it a URL and it can scan what's actually on that URL, and you can allow it to browse the web. So does anyone have any interesting assistant ideas that we might want to create? Sorry? Okay. Let's see.
I thought he told them about
So because this is not about prompt engineering, I'm not going to talk too much about like how I'm writing the instructions. Maybe afterwards, if you have any questions, you can ask me personally. A personal assistant. So there's something interesting I might do here. There's a fitness assistant I've made before, and I'll try and kind of clone it off the top of my head. You are a personal assistant that analyzes Strava data to provide. So to give you guys context, I mentioned that I was an international athlete. I do still work out a lot, but I have Strava, I have an app called Heavy, I have my Fitness Pal, I have lots of different apps. And what I do sometimes is I feed the screenshot of the data to OpenAI to say, like, provide me recommendations on how to improve. So this is kind of what we're going to try to do here. So let's see.
Wow, and
So the first thing we're going to do is tell the assistant to introduce themselves and ask the user to upload a screenshot of their Strava data. And then I think we want to, based on, then you want to ask the user what type of advice they want. Based on the inputs provided.
I know everything there are involved. Okay, they better aren't running on shouting is the intermediate into the man.
So what we're going to do is just name this Strava advisor. We're going to give this a description and AI assistant Strava. We're going to add some basic conversational starters. So I might just say, hey, hello. I'm not going to, when you add monetization, there's a couple conditions. When you add monetization, do you have to add user sign up? I like user sign up because I like to collect the user email so I can market to them. But you also have to connect it to Stripe, which is a whole process in itself. So we're not going to actually connect it to Stripe, but we are going to allow file upload, remove image generation. We want to keep image recognition, and we don't need it to browse the web. What we have here in advance right now, this is a chip assistant, but if you working directly with OpenAI and you create the assistant with OpenAI, you can just put the keys in here and it will do the same thing. So some of you might be familiar with just building your assistants in OpenAI from the back end. You can do that and just feed your keys to chip. But not necessary, as we can see, because we built that all here. So we're going to test this. I actually need a Strava image.
And I'm in something with the and just grows real before but it's not. Now I'm not a little bit just that's like I was it prayer and all the
Let's see if we can find something. Okay, let's just take. No, that's not good. Okay, so what I'm gonna actually do is try to send my own. So you can see it does the first introduction. It says, hey, I'm here to help you analyze the Strava data and provide the personalized recommendations. Can you share a screenshot of the Strava data? We need to find a realistic screenshot. I just need to see what it's called on Strava. Okay, we'll take this weekly snapshot. Just save as. We're going to upload this. We can upload the image. And you can see it's saying, hey, what specific advice are you looking for? I'm going to actually say injury prevention. And now it's starting to analyze the image. And you can see it's providing a summary of the data. It's providing advice based on the information in the data. So there's lots of interesting things you can begin to do. What we would do here is we can either make this public to everybody. We can make it only available to me, share with a link. Now I have the link. I can embed it on my website. I can share the URL. And now with this URL, we have our personal fitness assistant. So even though I said 30 minutes, I probably made that in, I don't know, 5-10. You all probably can make that in 5-10. Does anyone have, we have 30 seconds. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah, yeah. So actually what I do now, we maybe could speak about it later. I have an assistant, and what I do is try and figure out, okay, where can AI help a particular person in a particular role? And I reach out to them on LinkedIn. I say, hey, I can help you build assistants. And what the assistant does, if I enter their job description and their company description in the assistant, it gives me ideas for assistants they should be using. Yeah. a bit crazy, but it's that it just means any role that I can find on LinkedIn, and depending on the company, I can specifically like tailor something to, hey, I can help you this way. Yeah. 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 This one. Yeah. 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 So this they I'm not sure if I jump back. So yeah, they run the newest model on by default on all of the chip apps. They're using the latest assistant API, so it doesn't actually use your data for the training data. So they're trying to develop in that way. Yeah. Not just because the custom GPT, for people to use it, they have to have the premium version of ChatGPT. Most people don't have that. You can't put it on your own domain. You can't collect the user emails and see the usage data. Like, from a developer standpoint, it's a little bit restrictive so far. I'm hoping they will change that. I don't think they will change that because I don't think their focus is like people building assistants through their platform. I think their focus is people building assistants with their API. The one of the limitations I think is right now they just have the OpenAI as models. There's another tool I use. I use it with Mate. Oh, that's it. It's called Eden AI, and it's like an API aggregator. Um, and it aggregates all like Azure's AI APIs and Google Cloud, and but there's so many for different things. And depending on your use case, you should use the right model for what you're building for. I think a lot of people are just using like OpenAI as the most popular, but it's not the best model for everything, and it's not the best model for every industry. And right now, Chip only has OpenAI's models. I have a belief that although I like the kind of messenger style UI, to me it's a little bit restrictive. In me giving it to users don't want to always talk back and forth with some assistant. There's something about like traditional UIs that's a little bit easier sometimes to like navigate visually. Having to talk back and forth, not everybody wants to do that. Especially when in the social impact space, you're dealing with like different types of people that might not want to communicate back and forth. Not yet. Not yet. So, yeah.
They did.